Hello, welcome to the Scale Modeling Cafe. Welcome to part one in a very exciting project. This thing, the Boulton Defiant in 1/32 scale from Airscale. I've done a full inbox walkthrough of the kit, kind of a bit like a review if you like. So if you haven't seen that, you can pop over and have a look at that. You will note that it is a 3D printed kit, my first ever resin kit. And yeah. Right, okay, I've finished the kit. I'm filming this afterwards. Normally I do it the other way round, and I bang on in the intro about the aftermarket sets I'm going to use. There's none on this. It's all in the kit. I bang on about my procrastination over the colour scheme. Clearly, I finished the kit, so I decided on a colour scheme. More of that in a second. And thirdly, kind of outline the aims of this kit. So the first aim of this kit really was to get it built. I've never built a full 3D printed kit before. Obviously, I've used some of the detail sets that are on the market now and continue to come out. They're just awesome quality. But this is my first full resin kit. The vagaries of the material. It is very brittle, as you will see in part two, where I had quite a few accidents. If you haven't seen them already, step back in time, have a look at the video that I made when I had the disaster, when I actually snapped the rear halves of the fuselage parts off, which was a pain in the arse, frankly. I managed to snap off the elevators, managed to snap off the radiator flap twice. First time the corner, second time halfway. Managed to drop the turret and snap the muzzle suppressors off, two of them. So it's been an adventure, I think is fair to say. I've also damaged various bits and pieces here and there. So part two actually is going to be quite interesting, I think, because it's how I solved it. And yeah. There we go. I'm going to leave it there. Part two is going to be quite interesting. Also, people may imagine that because it is 3D designed in, whatever software that Peter's used, that it's going to fit together perfectly because it's designed that way in the computer. The realities are that, printers have tolerances. The parts need to be printed on supports, which need to be cleaned up. And the tolerances of, sort of pegs and holes and things are really, really tight. In some respects, maybe if I was being really honest, a little bit too tight. So I managed to, I reaming out holes, sanding pegs down, all that kind of stuff to try and improve the fit. And I managed to damage a few of the little parts here and there. But, that is one of the things when working with this material, and I've learned so much, and at the end of it I've got a beautiful model. Another thing you'll see me do is with the airframe, as well as putting it together and sort of trimming parts and things like that, is there's obviously an awful lot of filling, is because of the nature of the parts, there are visible layer lines. They kind of look like wood grain or contours on an OS map, that kind of thing. Now, Peter very cleverly has A, tried to minimize it as far as possible, and B, hidden those on the underside where he can. But some of them are relatively prominent, and some modelers may wish to just leave it alone. I wanted to deal with it, so I have done. So you'll learn all about that in part two as well. The detail in the kit, in the cockpit and the turret, is absolutely phenomenal, frankly. But as with any kit, there's always some extra bits and bobs you can add. And I've done that in the cockpit, as you're about to see. Especially up here by the kind of pilot's sort of shoulders, if you like. There's lots of cabling and various bits and bobs there. I added some detail to the throttle quadrant and around the bazaars and some wiring. I've added a few black boxes. I've added the you know, the Mitel plug-in lead with all the wiring for that, and various other bits and bobs, just to kind of liven up that cockpit. It is the focal point of any model aeroplane, is the cockpit. This has got two really, because it's got the turret as well. So I wanted to add a little bit of detail there. Not hardly anything in the turret, just literally the gunner's sort of harness thing. The colour scheme wise, I wanted to do a night fighter. I wanted something a little bit different. I got talking with a chap called Andy Long, who is writing, as we speak, a book about the Defiant. So Andy, I know you're watching this. Stop being lazy. Finish it, please, because I really want to read it. And I set him a set of requirements. I wanted an aeroplane, obviously a night fighter. I wanted one with 3-pot exhausts. Most night fighters at some point were modified with the 6 exhaust stack Blue Note exhausts, which you don't get in the kit. So Peter, if you're watching this, that might be an idea for the second release, because that will open up a lot more colour schemes for the night fighter side of things. And the fuselage roundel, I didn't want the red, white, blue, yellow. I wanted red, blue, yellow, because I think it looks really cool like that, actually, that kind of early war type roundel. And he came up trumps. He found an aeroplane which had all those requirements. It had silver lacquer undercarriage bays and undercarriage parts, which is really unusual because most of them were certainly off the production line. The vast majority were all black, and a lot of the repainted ones were subsequently painted black as well. This one had silver lacquer, which I think is a really nice contrast, and it really shows up that detail that Peter's designed into the wheel wells. So that's really cool. Lastly, what's really cool is this particular aeroplane was flown by Barker and Thorne, who were the top scoring aces in the Defiant, which is also really nice and a bit special. So I think hopefully I've got a bit of a unique model on my hands, and Andy's sort of guidance with the historical accuracy of things has been invaluable. So big shout out to you, Andy. I know the subject's going to come up. People may well mention it in the comments. Why not? Why didn't you do DZZ, the one with the shark's mouth? A couple of reasons. Firstly, it had the red, white, blue, yellow roundel, and I wanted, as I said, the red, blue, yellow roundel without the white. Secondly, it's been done to death. Airfix include it in their kit as one of the options in one of their boxings, so they're kind of everywhere. It's on aftermarket decal sheets. You just see that aeroplane all over the place, to the point where it's almost a cliche, I think. So I did discount that. Right, that's pretty much the end of the blaring on. What you're about to see then is, when we move over to the bench, is the cockpit and the turret. Although I did the turret all the way at the end before I started painting the model, I just think it kind of fits in with this part one of the kind of interior bits and pieces, and you'll see how I did all that scratch building as well. Really interesting, I think, this video series. It's garnered an awful lot of comments. The final model, you can go and see a whole bunch of pictures on my social media, on Facebook, Scale Modelling Cafe, and my Instagram, Scale Modelling Cafe, if you want to go and see how it's going to turn out. But this series of videos will detail how I got there. So enough blah for me. Let's pop over to the bench and we'll get cracking with taking some parts away from the supports, and we'll detail up the cockpit. All right, I'll see you at the bench.